All right. So my overall thoughts on Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. I was a little pensive going into this one. I really loved The Witch. I very much enjoyed The Lighthouse. It is a, kind of a mind fuck of a movie. Who knows how often I'll go back to that. I could see myself going back to The Witch a lot because I really, really enjoyed it. And, I watch it with the subtitles on. I watched The Lighthouse with subtitles on too, just so I didn't miss anything. And yeah, both great movies. I love Robert Eggers' creativity. I love his, respect and attention to detail when it comes to like the dialogue and the script and everything. And of course, the filmmaking, the visual aspects of the filmmaking are very beautiful as well. And I just didn't know, with Nosferatu being a movie that's been remade before, and essentially everyone knows it's Dracula. It's just the ripoff, the public domain ripoff of Dracula. So it's a story that we've seen quite a bit here. Now, I just didn't know if that was something I was going to be into, and I did something I shouldn't have done. I watched other people review the movie, and sometimes that can kind of sway you each way or either way. So I thought to myself, man, I hope I enjoy it. I don't know. Maybe this will be a movie that I walk away like thinking is terrible. But I thought it was actually a really good time in the theater. Now, it certainly has its issues. People are calling it a masterpiece. I think it's kind of far away from being a masterpiece. Again, it's the third time that this movie has been made in just over 100 years. He would have had to do something wildly different for me to think it was an absolute masterpiece. I don't know for me if it ever would have reached that level, but the movie looks gorgeous. I love it's like a 1.66 to 1 ratio. So it's not quite like full widescreen. I think widescreen is like 1.7. So I was thinking to myself, is this 4:3? Is this like a television? Because I saw the black bars on the side of the theater screen, but it's not quite. So it's 1.66. So it has an interesting kind of, aspect ratio that helps the film stand out. A lot of the movie does look black and white because of the lighting and because of the color palette. And then there are scenes that are like black and orange. So it kind of goes from like this cool blue, grayish look to this like warmer kind of orange look. I'll get more into that as we dive more into the atmosphere and everything. But yeah, overall thoughts, I enjoyed this one more than I thought I would. Not a masterpiece for me, certainly not boring, and well worth a watch for sure. And in my theater, I was thinking, is it well worth a theater watch? Man, there were just some people munching on popcorn and like whispering to each other. And there were only like 10 of us in the theater. And I was like, I can't believe that even though there's 10 people in this theater, these people are driving me nuts. So if you can handle a theatrical experience with people that may not take film or watching a film as seriously as you take it, then absolutely go see it in the theater. If you just want to be able to watch it in the comfort of your home, it's 2 hours and 12 minutes. If you want to be able to get up and use the bathroom and pause the movie and not have to worry about anyone, impeding on your experience, then I would say wait for home. But absolutely a film that all film fans and all horror fans should give at least a watch here. Now, setup and story, everyone knows the setup and story, right? There's a young woman who's been having these dreams of this creature for her whole life. She's just been recently married. Her husband gets charged with, going off into the wilderness, the Carpathian Mountains in Transylvania, to, get a deed signed for a home in Germany. And he's doing it so he can get a job, a well-paying job, so he can take care of his lovely young wife and their future family. Little does he know that he's being put out there on a lark by somebody who wants to basically throw him to the proverbial wolves. And Count Orlok, who he's going out to visit, has full intentions of going back to Germany and essentially stealing his wife, or, making his wife his own. And so it's all about how that all goes down, and how the quote unquote good guys want to deal with the vampire threat. Now, the characters and performances, there were some surprises here for me. Just need a sip of water. And you guys have heard me, if you've been hanging out on the channel, you've heard me say some very not glowing things about Aaron Taylor Johnson. I liked him in Kick-Ass. I thought he was fun in that one. I really didn't like his Quicksilver in Age of Ultron. I just really didn't like that movie. So I don't know if it's really so much his performance. I didn't really have an issue with his accent. I really didn't like the way that the character was portrayed in Age of Ultron. It wasn't fun. It was just the script was terrible to that movie. I really don't like that movie. And then what was the other thing that Godzilla. He was in Godzilla, and he just made me really, really wish that Bryan Cranston lived longer in that movie because I thought he was really uninteresting. Same thing with Elizabeth Olsen. I thought both of them were very uninteresting in Age of Ultron and in Godzilla. And so I didn't have I was like, oh, this guy's going to like distract the hell out of me. Yet another actor that people just think is good because he's physically attractive. But holy shit, you guys, Aaron Taylor Johnson, for me, put in the best performance in this movie. The best performance, easily. I would say, Willem Dafoe's probably the next closest for me as far as performances go. But Aaron Taylor Johnson blew my friggin' mind in this one. So I'm the jerk. I stand corrected, but if you guys know me, you also know I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong or, afraid to tell you exactly how I feel. And moving forward, when he's cast in a movie, I'm going to give it a good solid chance because I thought his accent here was really good and his cadence was amazing. I think that's something that's really interesting about this movie that I noticed is the way that the script was written. And I don't know if the actors were directed to use a certain kind of cadence. It sort of had not necessarily an iambic pentameter that they used a lot in like Shakespeare and everything, but there is some sort of rhythm and cadence to a lot of the dialogue delivery here. Not every single person, but I would say more often than not, 85 to 90% of the time, there is kind of a sing-songy, well, maybe not sing-songy, but some sort of rhythm and some sort of like beat to the cadence of the dialogue delivery. And I thought that was really interesting. It was something that stood out to me as a huge positive here, something I didn't expect to see and something that I really enjoyed. Nicholas Hoult was great. Lily Rose Depp had her moments. I don't think it's her fault, but I do think a lot of the, convulsing and seizing and all that kind of stuff, to me, it just came off as silly. Again, I don't think that's her fault. I think any actress would have struggled with that because it just came off as a bit too much for me, something that really didn't work for me. Ralph Ineson, who played Dr. Wilhelm Sievers, he was in The Witch as well. He was amazing. His voice is absolutely incredible. Loved his performance. Simon McBurney, who plays Knock, who is basically the Renfield of the piece. I thought he was really good. The whole time I'm like, oh, he's like, is that Richard Dreyfuss? I mean, I knew it wasn't, but he just has like a Dreyfuss kind of look. Really enjoyed him. So those are the standout performances for me. Skarsgård as Orlok, not the biggest fan. Really not, you guys. I thought the voice was really good. I'm not really sure about the look. I thought the look was fine. It's nothing that like blew my mind. The whole mustache thing. I know that's a big controversy. I think he would have been scarier without, but I think that in the original Bram Stoker novel, Dracula does have a mustache. But again, this is not technically Dracula. So to use that as sort of a counterpoint when people are like, well, it's more like the book. And it's like, what book? Because this is supposedly its own thing. That's how they got past the rights, from the Stoker estate way back in 1922 when they made the original. So, the voice was okay, but the death rattle breathing all the time really did wear on me right away. It had this whole like Darth Vader as he's about to die in Return of the Jedi kind of sound. And in that movie, they use it for the tiniest little bit of time. And in this movie, it's like between every few words, he's doing this kind of thing. And it's just sort of like, okay, I get it, but isn't this guy supposed to really be like immortal? Isn't, I get that they're trying to portray a vampire that he has deterioration to his body and everything. And he does look somewhat frail, but also at the same time, he's very, very strong You know, they think there's a plague going on in their little town in Germany, and seemingly it would just be that Orlok is going around killing like, you know, a dozen or so people every single night, or maybe even more. So that whole like trying to play the frail side while he's also literally an immortal undead beast. I thought there was something there that didn't really jive for me. I think Skarsgård is a great performer. Maybe he was told to really sell up that breathing and everything. For me, it was a bit too much. Now, mood and atmosphere and direction, I kind of already touched on that in my overall thoughts. I got a little too excited there. Um, the mood and atmosphere is really, really good here. I think that's something that Eggers is always going to deliver, and the direction is beautiful. It is, you know, maybe a little too slow, very, very deliberate. I do like deliberate use of the camera and all that, but I think that this movie, you know, at 2 hours and 12 minutes, it could have come in at maybe like an hour 55. It could have moved a little bit smoother, a little bit quicker, and touching back on the story a little bit. I think there are a lot of scenes that are sort of like, didn't I just see this scene 10 minutes ago, just with like two other people talking about the same thing? So I felt like they sort of doubled up on some of the narrative. And I think that if you don't double up on the narrative, you can cut the runtime down, you can make it a bit more succinct. And I think that also lends to the mood and atmosphere of the movie, because it lets you immerse yourself in the visuals and in the feel. So mood and atmosphere, I mean, with Robert Eggers, you're always going to get a great mood and atmosphere. The costume design was beautiful. The set design and production design were absolutely gorgeous. You really feel like you're in that time. And yeah, I mean, they sucked me right in with that. They just could have been a little bit quicker and a little bit more succinct with how they told the story. Now, music and sound design, I don't really recall very much music here. So I guess that's not very good. The score didn't stand out to me. I'm not saying that it was bad or anything, but it's nothing. I'm not like, as I'm thinking about the movie or been ruminating on it since watching it yesterday, late afternoon, I can't think of a piece of music that really stands out to me. Sound design is great. I sort of expect that in every major motion picture now. If you don't have good sound design, then I think that's an epic fail. You know, other than the weird breathing from Orlok, but that's, you know, an actor decision or a director's decision. But I felt like the sound design was really great. You know, they do have a few kind of jump scary moments, but I felt like they were very earned, and I sort of felt them coming. So it didn't seem cheap to me. And anytime you get like one of those jump scares, there's a nice little bit of sound design as well. You know, the clip clop of the horses, the growling of the wolves, like all that kind of stuff. Really dug it. There's a scene where Nicholas Holt's character, I believe his name is Thomas, stays with a band of gypsies before getting to Orlok's castle. And as he rolls up on their little village, they're playing music and everything. And it really looked like it was a live performance. I always look out for the strumming and everything. And the strumming was like dead on with the performance. So I really appreciated that aspect of it as well. Now, the visual effects and the kills, they were great. I thought the look of Orlok was really good. There's sort of like, you know, everyone thinks there's a plague going on in the German town. So people have like sores. I don't know if that really is the plague, or if it's just that the town's overrun with rats and people are being bitten, or if they were just bitten by Orlok and not fully drained. They don't really like let you know if it really is the plague or if it's just Orlok going around killing people. I just assumed it was the vampire going around killing a bunch of people. And the visual effects, they don't really go too overboard or anything. There are a couple spots where the Renfield character is, you know, mutilating animals. He bites a dude's neck, and, you know, you get a little bit of a splash with the gore. I thought very tasteful on the gore side. And there's a couple times in the movie where you get like a full like kind of money shot of Nosferatu, and I thought the creature design looked really, really cool. Like it did look something, it looked like an illustration out of an old-timey book. It did have this like otherworldly kind of creepy vibe to it. So I think the visual effects and the kills were great. I don't know how much of the rats and dogs were like digital, but they looked very believable and really, really good. Yeah, any matte paintings that they were doing in this movie were seamless with with the real sets they were using. So kudos to the visual effects department on Nosferatu. Now the climax, if you know the story of the film, you sort of know how the climax goes. I'm not going to get into specifics because I don't want to spoil anything if you do want to go see it. But I was sitting there thinking, like, how are they going to end this? Is it going to be like the action ending, or is it going to be like the poetic sort of ending? So I'm not going to tell you which one you get, but I thought the climax was actually very satisfying, and I loved the last shot of the film. The last couple shots were beautiful, and there was, for somebody that hasn't watched like the two Nosferatu movies, a whole bunch. I don't even think I've seen the Herzog one. I've only seen the Murnau from 2022 or from 1922. This one sort of kind of falls, I would say the best of better than the 22 version. Again, I haven't seen the 79 version, but I love the way that this movie ended, and yeah, it was well worth my experience in the theater, even with the people eating their popcorn and whispering to each other. I want to tell people to shut up, but I also don't want to get stabbed or shot. And I live in Arizona where people carry. So I'm not trying to get killed over wanting somebody to shut up in the theater. But yeah, I recommend Nosferatu, whether or not you're a theater person. I'm not one of those people that's like, we have to support movies in the theater. I really don't think it's on us. I think the onus is on Hollywood and the filmmakers to convince us to go to the theater. But I would say this movie is certainly worth watching. Whether or not you're a vampire movie fan, I think if you're a fan of, beautiful filmmaking and just filmmaking in general, if you're a film enthusiast, I recommend Robert Eggers' Nosferatu from 2024. I guess I would give it like a 3.5 to 4 stars out of 5. Just a couple things that could have cleaned up to really be a 5-star film or to be considered a masterpiece for me. But who knows? I'm a rewatcher. I like to rewatch movies, and sometimes after I've seen a movie about 3 to 5 times, my feelings start changing on it. So yeah, guys, those are my thoughts on Robert Eggers' Nosferatu from 2024.